P20 is actually the education continuum, everything from preschool all the way through secondary school and beyond to either an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree and beyond in post-secondary education. And the reason that that spectrum is important to us is that you can't mention any part of life in this community where education doesn't play a leading role. It's a leading role in the eradication of poverty. It's a leading role in economic development. Good schools make for attractive communities. It keeps values of properties high. So all of the things that education does for a community are the reasons that SALC keeps it high on its list of priorities. I think those of us who believe that P20 is the right way to approach education, because it's a series of building blocks. We know, for example, that if a child comes to school, comes to kindergarten or first grade, knowing the things that they're supposed to know, their chance of reading at third grade level, their chance of doing math at third grade and fifth grade level are much improved. And the challenge is getting enough resources early on, because those building blocks are one on top of the other. If the first one's shaky, the rest of them are going to be shaky going forward. If the first one's solid, then the rest fall into line as a solid base for education. Our concern is that there isn't enough in the way of resources to do the job that really needs to be done across the board. When universities took a big cut in the last couple of years because of the recession, our universities suffered more than most universities in other states. The cuts were more dramatic here. Because teachers have been underfunded traditionally in the state of Arizona, many of them are leaving the state or leaving the profession because they can't earn a decent living at the salary levels that they are currently receiving. We need to bring teachers up to a level where it's not a subsistence wage, it's a livable wage, and a good one. There isn't a more important thing in our society than training the next generation of citizens to be successful adults when they leave the education system, at whatever point, high school, beyond high school, whichever. We really mirror the system. We have goals in the preschool area. We support First Things First at the state level and support other efforts, because there are other efforts ongoing to make sure that every child in the state has a preschool opportunity that is quality and that gives them the tools to get into kindergarten and first grade with the ability to advance. In the K-12 area, we certainly want to make sure that teachers are paid adequately so that they remain on the job and remain in that very important equation. You know, the thing that will fix education more than anything else is making sure you have a qualified teacher in front of every classroom. And that's a challenge because teachers are underpaid and are leaving the profession and leaving the state. In post-secondary education, both at the community college and the university level, we want to make sure that those options are available, that every student coming out of high school has the opportunity to move ahead, whether it's in a certification program, an associate's degree, or a four-year degree at a university, whether it's in state or somewhere else. But because each student is different and because each student comes to that point in their education with different needs and different aspirations, we want to make sure that all of those avenues are available to them. It's interesting that of late, in the last several years, several business groups have become more interested in the success of education in Arizona. And that's correctly placed interest, we believe, at SALC. We work with other senior business leadership groups in the state, both in Phoenix and in Flagstaff, to make sure that we're supportive of educational initiatives that will improve the system. We also work with groups that come out of education. There's a business education roundtable and a number of other groups that are working hard to make sure that education stays in the forefront of the issues in Arizona that are worthy of support, both at the voter level, but certainly at the legislative level. When we make progress along any of those avenues, whether it's in preschool, the availability of preschool to students, the improvement of K-12 salaries and support, or whether we restore some of the funding at the university level so that they can return to the levels of funding that they had before the recession. Those are all indicators of success. But quite frankly, we believe that coalitions are the way to get things done. And part of our success comes from working with other groups in a positive way so that we have a united front in support of education, not just a voice here and a voice there. It needs to be across the state, it needs to be across industry, and it certainly needs to be across the electorate. Certainly in the last couple of years, the initiative called 123, which passed at the ballot, and used some of the state trust land funding to improve teacher salaries, and the fact that the governor and others are now working to make sure that by 2020 there's a 20% increase in salaries. It's a great first step. I think a lot of us would like to know what 4, 5, 6 looks like. The next steps in that attention being paid to education, because we're not there yet, and the 20% is a good start. It's helpful, but we still need to improve teacher salaries much more than that 20% in order for them to remain in the profession and remain in the state. If we don't support education, my fear is that other states and other municipalities who have a much better view of that issue than we do, or a much more supportive view of that issue, will be able to outcompete us when it comes to economic development or groups moving to the community that would be helpful in our economy. I don't want Tucson to lag behind anyone. I think our goal would be to have Tucson be a shining point of the state where people looking at Tucson as a place to either grow or increase a business, or relocate a business for that matter, would see it as a place that values education, values teachers because of our affiliation with Tucson Values Teachers, and values the fact that the next generation is the workforce of the future, and we want them to be as well qualified as we can possibly make them.